Welcome to the Atheist Podcast. I'm Erin.
And I'm Kelley. Atheist is where we will explore American cultural trends through the lenses of a devout theist
And a devout atheist. We will discuss the messiness of being human.
the latest in social science, psychology, and American culture.
And what any of it has to do with Homo sapiens' longtime preoccupation with religion.
Hey, Erin.
Hey, Kelley.
Welcome back.
All right. We have a special guest joining us at the table today.
Our producer,
Hello, everyone.
Justin Seiwell.
Yeah.
He's mic'd up, so everybody can hear him.
Yay!
Well, I know. So we are going to, we're going to talk a little bit about Esther Perel first. So, and then we're going to play a game that she created called Where Shall We Begin? And so Esther Perel is kind of in the same vein of How to Know a Person, David Brooks. This game, I think, is a great vehicle or tool, that you can use to end up in conversations that really, you will learn stuff about people that you never knew.
Yeah.
Really deep personal stories, a lot of things from people's childhoods. I mean, I've heard so many different stories from people that I never would have known, had we not played this game.
Sat down and played this game.
And after the fact, you're like, you do feel bonded. You're like, we just went through something together. That was like an experience.
Yeah.
And so just kind of like some background on Esther. So she is a psychotherapist. She's a best-selling author. She's also a podcast host. She's TED Talks, like all the
She works
things.
predominantly with couples. Is that correct?
Yes. So she's a relationship therapist.
Yeah.
And so like her book that
Kind of
the
skyrocketer.
Yeah. So I found out about her. I saw her TED Talk first, and then I read the book that was sort of related to the TED Talk, which was called Mating in Captivity.
Yep.
And it's sort of like the thesis of the book is that like we're not designed in the 21st century and our lifespans now sort of demand something different from relationships than has been demanded historically, right?
Right.
So she uses this idea of the paradox a lot. So like in a relationship, we're often looking for this paradoxical person that doesn't actually exist, right?
That can do everything.
Right. Like I need you to be like completely dependable, devoted, consistent, but I also need you to be mysterious and dangerous. And like, it's like, and it's this idea that we used to have like more like a village of people that sort of satisfied a lot of our emotional needs. But now we're so dependent on this like one relationship partner. Also because we're living so long, she's like, you will have, she always says, you'll have like 3 or 4 relationships in your adult life. Do you want to have them with the same person? Yeah. And because you are going to change, the relationship's going to change. It's going to be a different kind of relationship. So she's just amazing. Yeah. I cannot recommend her work like enough. She's
also,
so
she's
good.
like sexy
hot,
as hell.
Hot.
She's so hot. Totally.
And she
is goals. Hashtag goals.
She's amazing. She also, interestingly, so her parents were survivors of the Holocaust.
Right.
And they both met out of a concentration camp after they were the only surviving members of their family. Horrible,
Whoa.
right? So she grew up in this neighborhood where in Belgium, I believe, where all of the people that lived in the neighborhood were also survivors of the Holocaust. They were like people who had survived and they were raising their families in the same community. And so she observed as like a young person, she was like, some of these people came back to life and other people kind of like died there. Like they didn't die, but like they never moved through what they experienced.
That grief and trauma.
And so she wondered, like, what is it? Yeah. Like, what is it that allows some people to like move through something so horrible and to have like a vibrant life on the other side? and what is it that that for the people that don't. And so for her, it boils down. She uses the term eroticism, and in I think the original Greek eros, but it means life force. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what is it that is generative in your life that fills you with a life force that propels you forward? And obviously a huge part of that is relationships.
Yeah.
So
that's so interesting. Just to kind of veer to the side for a little bit, for just a moment. I've been watching the series on Apple TV, The New Look. Have you seen anything about this? It's the story of Christian Dior and Coco Chanel during during World War II and then after World War II, and how French couture kind of helped reshape, France and Paris after the war. And Dior's sister was a part of the resistance and was in the camps. And so a big part of the story is her survival story. Yeah. And it's so, her survival story and then her coming back and having to recover from that trauma. And just last night, it's so, I'm sure that there are communities that have, a much better understanding than I do of that recovery process. But I've always kind of looked at that as survival, there was this, that it's all joy and happy and I've survived and everything. And watching her, I was like, oh my gosh. And so I actually Googled last night, what is the rate of the people who don't survive after that trauma. And they've done studies. And I just feel like we don't really talk about that.
Yeah.
Or the only way in which we do talk about it is survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
As opposed to trauma, right?
Yeah.
And deeper underlying psychological things that happen when you survive.
Something that horrific.
The kind of to the survivor's guilt, one of the things that Perel talks about, of the people that survived and sort of where, what were one of the mechanisms that kind of it was almost like a way of thinking, but it was that it is my responsibility to live the life that for the people that didn't get to live it.
Yeah. I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I thought that was really powerful.
Well, it makes sense. So if her parents were these survivors, and then they also not only survived the camps, but also survived the trauma of surviving the camps, right? Mm-hmm. That she is this expert in relationships and love. And it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
You said that you hear a lot of that same verbiage from military, veterans who lost comrades during a military action or a military campaign. They come back and they say, I don't know how prevalent it is, but you hear this a lot where it's I have to live my life in a way that honors the people who died for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's some interesting literature that's coming out about that. I wouldn't say lately, it's been around for a while, but it talks about how sometimes some of that PTSD or whatever that's coming that we see in veterans so much, sometimes it comes from that I went through a traumatic event. I don't know how to have survived that event knowing others didn't.
Yeah.
And then you have the rhetoric of I have to live my life in a certain way to honor those. But if you don't know what that way is it's even more traumatic.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Go see this is going to be too late. This is going to air too late for this, but read Arthur Miller's All My Sons, which is it's about that, and it's playing at the New Jewish Theater right now. But there's a line in this, and he wrote it right after World War II. And it's and there's a line in it where Chris, who's the character, he's a veteran. He comes back from war, and he says, men didn't just die, they killed themselves for each other. He said, I remember this one kid, he gave me a pair of his last pair of dry socks. And I thought, because of that, something has to change. That kind of sacrifice has to change the world. He goes, but then I came back, and for everybody else, it was just some sort of bus accident.
Oh,
wow.
And this is way before Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, but for Miller to be able to just articulate that specifically,
Yeah.
it was just some sort of bus accident, and it meant nothing. And so I didn't want to take any of it. I didn't want to take the house, he's talking about the GI Bills or the cars,
Yeah.
Wow.
And, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's a brilliant play. So Esther Perel,
Yes.
the interesting little side note as to who she is and maybe how she
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of have an origin story, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's hers.
Yeah.
it's
Oh my
really
gosh.
fascinating.
Now I'm picturing her as Wonder Woman, and
Yeah.
that's also pretty hot.
So now I'm actually kind of curious. Do you know when she published this game?
Oh yeah, it was during the pandemic.
It was.
Okay.
That's the origin story of the game, is because she was thinking when everybody was locked down and we weren't in person with people, we were starting to interact on Zoom. She's like, I created this game so when people come out, they have some kind of tool in which to
Cool.
Yeah.
talk.
The reason I ask is only because I kind of a funny story before we get into storytelling, but I know the pandemic kind of rose this up for a while, but like going way back, there was that New York Times, like the 36 questions to fall in love. And it kind of started a trend of this. And I actually, these kinds of games, whether you follow the actual game rules or not, or just to spark conversation with friends. The story I always like to tell is a number of years ago, I had a new coworker, a new assistant that I had to work with, and he and I knew each other from college.
Yeah.
And we didn't really get along in college. And now we're both hired by the same place, and we have to work together. And we weren't quite feeling it at the beginning.
Yeah.
He had very different opinions, and I had very different opinions. And we were on a school bus coming back from, I think, Kansas City at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and everyone's asleep in the back, and like it's just he and I in the front. And he's like, Justin, we're going to play 36 questions to fall in love. And we
you guys
did
just cuddled in.
And we did it. And we went back, and it was very sincere, and it lasted for like 3.5 hours. And
Awesome.
he has been one of my best friends. This is Daniel, clearly,
Yeah.
we're talking
Yes.
about. He has been one of my
Shout
best
out.
friends ever since. Like, I love
Aw.
that man.
Yeah.
And
I
it's-
love
it's-
that
yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point, right? Because I think that there is an element of falling in love with somebody when you become good friends.
Ye-
Like
Oh,
when you have a
100%.
new friend, it feels like falling in love.
100%.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
I recognize that it probably is a little odd for some people to hear the masculine voice
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
that, but like that's what a friendship is.
Yeah.
Like absolutely.
It is.
And love has so many different levels. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like your romantic
Romantic
partner.
love.
I
Right.
know. I know. It's true. It's so
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And we need that. Like we need that richness in our lives outside of just our romantic partner.
Yep.
And that's kind of, what she's, I mean,
That
she's,
eroticism.
Yeah, it does. It brings a different like life force
Yes.
into your life, and it's that's so funny because I've had like a similar experiences where we played a game like that, and all of a sudden then you're just like we're bonded to the
Yeah.
you feel like this sense of like
Yeah.
there's really something here,
Okay. One last. Okay.
Okay.
Then we'll get to the roles. My first year of grad school. So I was in an acting program for grad school. This is not seminary. This was grad school for acting. And, we're all like, I don't know, 23, 24 years old or whatever. And there's maybe 10 or 12 of us. And the first week, and we're about to enter this 3-year program where we're working together every single day, like weekends, 7 a.m. till 11 at night. We're doing all these shows together. Like we are forced to know each other really well.
Yeah.
So for some reason, we thought it was just a great idea. And we all got in a room. We played strip poker. We all got naked.
So you were all bonded. After
We were
that.
bonded. We also were bonded like brothers and sisters, and we were like, and there were definitely
I
like
thought we
people
took all
who
the
did
sex
not.
questions out of it.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Well, there was nothing sexual about it, believe me.
That's so funny. So actually, that leads me to one question that I'll just like pose because this is something I've found that I do more now. But like I like tell my friends that I love them, like
yeah.
and it's been really good.
I love that.
I know. So, but it's funny because like talking to like Tommy, he's like, wait, what? Or like if it's like, I'll be like, I miss you. Like, I'd like to see you, but it's very like open, vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so for, it's just a reminder though, too, like for that, like that adolescent person, it's like that vulnerability, like to see that sort of expressed is like, whoa, that's really
to
different.
say it.
Yeah.
It's very powerful, like to be able to express that comfortably with somebody else. It shows an intimacy of relationship as well. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Tell people you love them. Yeah. I love you guys.
I love you too.
Yeah. All right, let's play this game. Okay. So it's a really cool game. It's also like beautiful. It's put together really well. It's not just like, some like board game. And you want to explain the rules?
Sure. Yeah. So the rules are, I don't know. They're like different rules depending on how you want to play. But essentially, like you draw, a handful, 7 cards, and then you take turns. So like
it's kind of like apples to apples if you've ever played that with your kids.
Yeah. So like there's a person who's answering the question, and then everyone else who's participating is choosing the card for the person who's answering the question.
And on all the cards is a question. There's a question on each
question
card.
on each card, and there's different categories. And there's like a little symbol on each of them that sort of like identify what the category is. But which is not super important, except for if the pink cards are the sex cards.
So if you're playing with kids, you might want to take out the pink cards.
Take those out. Yeah. So it's like the PC version, right? And then but the other part is like, so then everybody gives the question, their question that they've chosen for the answerer, and the answerer gets to pick from the questions that have been posed.
And I like when the answerer reads off all the questions. We get to hear like,
them
all the questions. Yeah. Which I think is kind of fun.
I agree. Yeah. I agree.
Because then you know what they didn't pick, which is also kind of telling.
Yeah, there's something interesting there.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just can't, like sometimes it's like, I don't actually have a good story or I can't think of something.
Yeah.
But yes, so, and then there is a version where, and we're not going to play this today, but you can have a chip, or we could play it, I don't know. But you each get like a couple of tokens. So you can force someone to answer one of the questions by voting with the chip.
Yeah.
So you get like two during the game, and you say like, I really want to hear so and so answer this question, so I'm going to vote on that one.
Yeah.
But somebody else could also put one down, and then
they have to pick between those two.
Right.
So I would suggest you play that with people who you feel real comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because you're giving them some power over the stories you tell.
And then there's
and recording it into a podcast is entirely optional if you're playing at home.
Yes,
right.
Don't record this necessarily for posterity. When you're playing it at home,
and
you'll have a little bit more freedom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think actually every time I've played this, it has become like very quickly at the very beginning, people are like, what is said in this room stays in this room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you do kind of get to that like place really pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, let's do it.
Let's dish.
Yes. So one other element that you can play, which we're not going to play today, but is they do have themes that are like frames of reference.
Oh.
So you can be like, tell me, like the frame of mind should be something exciting.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So then
are there other cards?
Yeah.
I forgot about that part.
Yeah, I don't usually do that part. I don't know why. It just doesn't seem to.
Yeah, just read a couple of those cards off though. So, and we'll give you an example. So.
Oh yeah, here they are.
So I just picked a random question card. So if you pick that card and it says.
Okay, so here, so it could be crazy.
Okay, so say you pick crazy. So that's the card you need. You don't get a choice on that one, right? You just pick one.
That's like this is the lens through which you're answering the questions, and it could be for a round. So like I'll give you just a few examples. So it's like crazy, heavy, unbelievable, off the record, from your teenage point of view.
Okay,
so different frames.
So think about that frame, and then say the question you pick is, my experience with death has been. So what's your crazy experience with death? What's your teenage experience with death? What's your unbelievable experience with death?
It does change how you would answer.
Yeah,
actually.
it definitely.
Kind of like it.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Cringeworthy, changed your worldview, wouldn't tell your mother.
Yeah.
I can see it being a little bit of guardrails to kind of
guide the conversation.
Yeah. So you're not just like choosing out of a big vacuum.
Yeah. Well, what do we want to do? We're going to do a round with a theme and one without?
Sure.
Whatever.
We'll try it. We can always edit it out.
Okay. let's do theme first. No theme first.
Let's do no theme first, theme, and then we'll decide what we want to do for the third round if we do a third round.
Okay.
Who wants to be the answer? I can go first. I can be the answerer first.
Okay. And just so you all know, we just picked a bunch of cards like for each
ahead
other
of time. Yeah.
So we have them. So and it's really important that the person has like a lot of choice so that nobody's answering a question that they really don't want to answer.
Yeah.
Especially when we're recording it and sharing it publicly.
Okay. So there's two here that I think are from two separate people. So if I wrote a book, its title would be.
Oh,
is that Justin's?
That was me. Yeah.
And then the other one that I matched it or paired it with was, if you catch me by the fridge at night, I'm probably sneaking.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That
was me.
I'll answer both, but because I'm like, oh, I actually have like answers that I can give. So I have this manuscript. I've written like 80 pages of a book. And right now the working title is Too Much. Because I think it's a lot of the things that we've talked about here, but it's like sort of like what is our contemporary troubles, and I think it stems from an environment of too much. Right, we're we're an animal that's designed for scarcity that lives in a world of abundance, and we have a real hard time reconciling that, and whether that's like our food system, the technology that we're in, just like the amount of stuff we could buy, the amount of information, the number of choices, it's just so much. There's so much. It's too much, right?
It's too much.
So
that's your title. I love it.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
I knew you were writing a book, but I didn't know that was the title.
Yeah. So that's the title. I mean, I don't know if somebody wants to publish it. We'll see.
Anybody can contact us here.
Yes, please do.
Atheist at stlpodcast.com.
And then, so fridge at night. I don't try not to eat sweets at all during the day, but I do eat sweets at night. So like something chocolate or Lauren made like this cookie cake last night, and I kept sneaking into the kitchen. I was just another piece and another piece. So yeah, but yeah,
small things often.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Small things often. Too much, right? It's so good. But yeah, those would be my answers.
Now, do you drink milk with your cookies?
I don't. Wine, more like
wine.
Have some red wine.
Wine is
with
good
chocolate.
With cookies. Yeah. All right, good. You want to go next, Justin?
Okay. So I actually don't know because I mixed all my cards up. And
that's okay. Just pick two. And
I don't know who gave me what cards either.
Well, okay. So I have to pick two?
Well, I don't know. You could or you don't have to. Just pick one.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't know who gave me this one, but it's something I wish I had been told as a child.
Oh, I think I gave you that one.
I think you did.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I had to think about this one for a little bit of like, what do I wish I had been told?
Yeah.
And you guys have actually alluded to it when you did the series about making change. I wish I had been told how little anyone actually knows what's going on at any given point. I had this perception for the longest time that people just had it together all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
they don't.
They
like
don't.
The opposite
Everyone's
is true.
just winging it every day. And I had no idea until, well into adulthood and
I know
transitionings in life and whatnot. I'm like, oh my God, everyone's just out here like winging it. No plan, no idea what's going on.
And we think that we're the only person. It's like imposter syndrome. And and then you're like, oh no, actually.
So, I wonder about that because I had that exact same experience, right? And you're like, I assume my parents
felt that too.
But then I was just wondering about, so Danny Kahneman just died. So he's Thinking Fast and Slow, the guy
okay.
An amazing social scientist, probably one of the most important social scientists of like our lifetimes, right? He was 90. And up until he started publishing in his work, like people really thought that humans were far more rational than we are.
Right.
And so I'm like, maybe maybe it's new. I don't know.
Yeah. That we're all like just
like we all now
messed
are like,
up.
oh no, we're all actually like mostly operating out of emotion. And it's only like when we really try to slow, right? That's the slow thinking, not the fast think. The fast thinking is like the emotional thinking.
Yeah.
That often is like the default mode.
Oh, yeah.
But then the rational thinking is the slow thinking, which is like, okay, if I don't react right now,
yeah.
I take the time to like evaluate something, where do I get, you
That's
know?
interesting.
Yeah.
Slow.
Yeah.
You know, one other really interesting tidbit about Danny Kahneman.
Huh.
So I was reading his like obituary in the New York Times, and he was like, his partner had like notified them of his passing, and they said Tversky was the last name, and I was like, well, that was his research partner, but that's a woman's name. Maybe his research partner became a woman, and like I was like, what is the
rabbit hole?
So I started researching, and it turns out, so Amos Tversky was his like longtime research partner who had died years before, and then Kahneman's wife had died, so Amos's wife and Kahneman got together in their like 80s, and then spent their last
That's an Esther
years
Perel
together.
story.
I was just about to say that's another adult
and so
relation. Oh wow.
Lauren and I were talking about like, we were like, so if this would be a good question, right? Is like, we were like, so if one of us died in our like 70s, and one of our friends like partners died, like who do you end up with? Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. I love it. That idea of slowness too. That's funny. So this last week I was in Vegas, or week before last for spring break. I was in Vegas, and I was also reading a book on Quaker silence.
That's an interesting juxtaposition.
It was a very interesting, and I had to email my
great
teacher.
pairing.
I had to email my teacher and be like, Ben, I thought I was going to be able to write about silence while I was in Vegas, but I can't.
Yeah.
But I know that my need for silence is real by being in Vegas. But so then when I came home, like this week, I've been writing a lot about silence in this book, Holy Silence. And it's a really beautiful book. But we have these kind of online conversations, and this person was in my class was saying that silence is kind of hard because it's limiting for people who might be deaf or might be hard of hearing, and like how does one find that kind of silence? And so she was talking about like stillness.
Yeah.
Like stillness is one. And so then I responded and I was like, for me it's actually slowness. Like I need to slow.
Yeah.
And so I need to look more into his writing about slow thinking, because that's the grounding point for me, because I'm just like la, 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 la.
Is he, because I remember, and I'm going to butcher the title, but I remember this is probably 20 years ago, but there was a book that kind of made the rounds in education, and I think it was like In Defense of Slow or something. I can't remember, but it was making the rounds of like, and this was 20 years ago, mind you.
Yeah.
But it made the argument. Yeah, this was right when I was like doing my master's in education, and it came out, and it was making the argument that was, we move way too fast in education, and we need to slow down. And it, to a level that it was almost controversial, because it was like, I'm making this up. I don't know that he was actually arguing it, but it was something like, we don't need to teach all of these rudimentary skills in kindergarten. Like, we don't need to start that fast. Like, we can just let kids play for a while and like naturally develop this stuff.
Yeah.
And then like, there is no need to cram, like on a higher level. He's like, why are we trying to cram statistical theory into a 16-week calendar?
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
No.
And we need
And
to
a
slow
16-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. Like, slow it way down. And it was controversial, to say the least. And I know it had some traction, but clearly didn't go anywhere. But if anything, we've sped up. But
we have, and what we've actually found, right, is like that's exactly what, instead of let's give the elementary kids more math, and cut recess, like we should have given them more recess.
Like more playtime was actually,
because that's how young mammals learn is by playing.
Well, and to your point of, answering your question, right? Everybody's messed up. Part of the reason I think we go so fast and we keep going and keep moving forward is to kind of hide the fact that Nobody
no
knows
idea what's going on.
what's going on. Yeah. Right? It's a defense
100%.
mechanism for sure.
Yeah, and
for
it's
sure.
that I like that, and it's like the people demanding slowness, I suppose, are sort of saying like, guys, we got to get the basics right first.
Actually, to add to that, and I do want to credit where credit's due, because I was taught this by my father, which was nothing is anywhere near as complicated as your brain wants you to think it is.
Yeah.
And he was using that. He was actually kind of brilliant. He was kind of using that metaphorically as we were like repairing something on a car. And I'm like 9 years old and I have no idea how this thing works. And I think it's like insanely intricate and complicated. And it's like, well, really, it's not. It's a series of really simple machines all kind of working together.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so
That's
maybe
cool.
that what made me think of that was, it's like, well, the slow thinkers are saying just slow down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because things in our lives that seem really complicated aren't necessarily as complicated as we think they are.
Yeah.
If we just slow down and do them.
Yeah. Next right step. Next right step.
Yeah.
That's good. You want to do another one, or you want to wait for the next round?
I think it's your turn.
All right. Kelly's up.
Okay. So here's something. Okay, I'll answer a hard one.
Yeah.
Okay. The hardest lesson I've learned about love.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a biggie.
I think I gave that one to you.
Oh,
I thought I did.
Oh, maybe you did. I
well.
gave you something similar. I don't remember.
okay. Well, I'll answer it for both of you.
Okay.
So I think the hardest lesson I've learned about love is that timing is important. You know, that
Oh my God.
there have been people I've loved in the past, but it just wasn't
The right time.
the right time.
Yeah.
And there's something kind of beautiful and sad and poetic about that. But then also, like, for Bill and I met, we were both divorced, and we met in our 40s. We got married in our 40s. We both had kids. And so, the beauty of it is I love my husband desperately, and we do not have a child together, and that doesn't diminish our love for one another.
Yeah.
But we share children, and that is, and I love my stepchildren. He loves my children. But there was like a grieving process when we first got married that like I used to kind of fantasize and dream about like, what if Bill and I had met each other when we were young?
Younger.
Like, what would our lives be like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you lose something. You lose something when your children lose something for sure. When you're in a divorce, when they're having to share parents, and it's hard. Divorce is hard no matter what. And so there was a sense of like, oh, what would it have been like if so I definitely would spend some mental energy on this kind of like timing fantasy of love. And I've since let that go.
Yeah. Because, your timelines had to match up.
Yep.
And I also think like, would you have been ready for each other yet?
Right.
Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah.
We both had to do a lot of growing in our first relationships to be ready for each other. Yeah. Now.
Yeah.
And, because I don't think it would be as good as it is now if we hadn't had those first relationships, for sure.
Right.
And I value my previous relationships and what I learned there. I certainly, would never want to not have my children.
Right.
But it's complicated, right? It's complicated. And so the hardest lesson I've learned about love is that love is complicated, and that it doesn't look like the fairy tales, but it can be, but it's beautiful and wonderful. But it's not perfect.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, timing is everything.
Everything.
Lauren and I talk about that too. Like, just like yeah, like what would it be like if we had gotten like somehow met each other? I mean, that's impossible, right? Like you just never would have happened. But like, what does that look like? You know, how does that change? And but
or even would we have survived if we had gotten
that's
gotten married?
Right. You wouldn't. Maybe not.
Our relationship,
right? Like that's the other thing too, is like that because of the other relationships that you've had, and then you realize like you have the understanding of like what works and what doesn't, and like what am I even looking for, or what am I trying to, having that knowledge informs, you can bring that to bring that to that next relationship in a way that is really important. Like,
because part of the reason that it's good now, right, is because I have the tools.
Yes,
which
that I
didn't
have
then.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's funny, and that's another like, just like a modern kind of the mating for captivity, right? Like a modern concept, because you used to just be like, who is the first person you fell in love with? Boom, you're married. Like, that's it.
That's
it.
No choices.
Yeah. And like, I mean, that's just how life was.
Yep.
But now that's not the case. So now there's like this whole different world of like who you could be to bring to a relationship.
Yeah.
It was also, I think it was when Al Gore and Tipper Gore were divorcing, and there was a bunch of commentary about like, but we live so much longer than we used to. So because they were like amicable, it was just like we've now grown apart, and it's time for us to go and split, and we wish each other well. And it's like,
what?
That was unheard of back in the day.
What was it? What was Gwyneth's thing? Was it amicable uncoupling or?
Oh yeah, I've heard that
right?
phrase. I've heard that
something
phrase.
like that.
Yeah. And I mean, we live so much longer than we used to. The multiple relationships is your adulthood. Is that going to be one person or not? But, all three of us are divorced. And I can say confidently, I don't regret any of the prior relationships I've ever been in. Did I make mistakes? 100%. And I learned a lot from those.
Yeah.
And I think it's made me a much better person.
Yeah.
So I don't regret it at all.
Yeah.
So, but as Erin taught me a long time ago, she goes, it's not just the right person, it's also the right time.
Yeah. 100%.
Yep.
It's so true.
Yep.
So true. Good one.
Yep.
It's a good one. Okay.
Should we try the
a frame.
A frame.
Okay, I like that. Okay. So okay.
Okay, I think this has to be random. I don't think you get a choice. Shuffle those things.
Shuffling, and boom. Okay, so the frame is close to your heart. So I think for that frame, I would probably say like a story about me I hope my kids will tell.
Yeah.
And
you can cry if you want.
Oh, I know. I'm just trying to think of like a very a specific story, because here's like, that saying, like, I don't remember the details of it, but it's like you don't remember like the specific things, but you just remember the way someone made you feel.
Yeah.
And it's like when I think about my parents, like when I think about my own parents, like that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like I have glimpses of like certain anecdotes, right? Like, or stories, I guess, but it's more the like feeling of comfort, right? It's a feeling of like that this person always showed up for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope. Like when it comes to like the kids, like I think what I hope is that when they talk about me, that they are sharing or thinking about like that this is somebody who always showed up for me.
Yeah.
I hope pushed me to like try to be the best version of myself that I could be. And that doesn't mean like in an optimizing sort of way, or that I need to be like a straight A student or anything like that, but just like, what I want for them is to enjoy and have a rich life, I mean,
to thrive.
And yes. And that can look all kinds of different ways, but like, so I think it's that, I also, I mean, I think they will say that I was like bold or like adventurous or not afraid.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's
good.
what I would think. I think that's how they see me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's how you want them to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bold and not afraid. I love that.
Yeah.
I just want that to sit there for a second. All right, Justin, you want to pick a frame?
I got to pick a frame. Okay, so the theme is unbelievable. And the question I'm going to go for this one is, or the prompt, I guess I should say, it's not a question. It's the last time I got lost in a great adventure.
Ooh.
So,
nice.
And you two both know that I love to travel with absolutely no plan.
Yes.
I love doing that. Like getting in my car, I'm like, I'll head east. And I have no idea where this is going to take me. Like, but I'll be back in a week.
Or go to Europe with $100.
I did do that too.
Yeah.
Yes. So I love traveling with zero plan. So I've gotten lost a lot. And unlike a lot of people, I love getting lost.
Yeah.
I find the greatest people, the greatest restaurants, the greatest like little like natural like beautiful places or like stuff that's off the beaten path. I love getting lost.
Yeah.
I will say, as terms of like getting lost in a great adventure, was probably back in the pandemic. That was the last time I really had like some undisrupted downtime to just kind of do what I love to do, which is travel with no plan. And I'm in Smoky Mountain National Park, and I don't know where I am in this damn park. I had driven and parked in a parking lot. I had found the Appalachian Trail. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to hike the Appalachian Trail for a little while. Like, why not? I had no idea. No frickin' clue. Because I'm like, how hard can this be? It's a trail, right? You just follow the trail.
Yeah.
No, that is not how this works. I did not realize until months after this that people die on this trail. Like, this is a normal thing for people to like, they have to like prep for years to do this or whatnot.
Yeah, if you're doing the whole thing.
Yeah. No, I had no illusions that I'm going to do the whole thing. I was like, I'm just going to go like
hike for a day,
15 miles one direction and then turn around and come back. Okay.
That's a long walk.
Oh.
That's a long walk.
Yeah. It turned into 23 miles because I got way lost. I had no idea where I was. And the reason it was because the section that I was in was clearly marked or whatnot. But of course, I'm in the friggin' Smoky Mountains. There's gorgeous things, and I like want to explore. So I did the
left the
trail.
Lost.
I left the trail. And
where you went wrong.
Again, fast forward, I didn't realize that people have died within 5 feet of the trail because they can't find it. I didn't know this.
Yeah.
I left the trail.
It's very Belden of you.
I am in the middle of this national park. I am sure if I started screaming, people could find me. I wasn't that far from reality, but hours of just where the hell is this thing? And then I found it, and I'm like, I don't know which direction to go.
Oh no!
Do I go left or do I go right? I'm like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh!
I took a chance, and I was like, well, I spent about an hour getting to this point, or like 2 or 3 hours getting to this point. And then I was lost for like 6 hours. So I guess I'll just walk a couple hours in this direction.
Hopefully.
We'll see what happens.
See if I see anything I recognize.
Yeah, and I started to see stuff I recognized. I was okay.
Oh my
God.
God.
That was great.
It could have been real bad.
I again had no idea how bad that could have been until way after this had happened. It was awesome.
Yeah, never leave the trail.
Awesome. Yeah, it was awesome.
Never leave
but
the
also,
never leave the trail.
Don't leave the trail.
Yeah,
like, shit.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done a lot of hiking, and you don't want to leave the trail. Especially like we've done a lot of hikes in like the desert, and you're like, okay, I only have so much water, and I need to not be lost.
Yeah.
I'm very good in the desert.
Yeah.
But I was like, this isn't the desert. I'll be fine.
It's lush.
It's lush. And I have plenty of water, and I'll be fine.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the movie about the guy who had to cut off his own arm?
Oh, the guy that fell into the
crevice.
Yeah. Is that? I think
he was hiking, and I forget where he was, but he was in the desert.
Yeah, A Walk in the Woods. Have you ever watched that or read that book? It's Bill Bryson. You would love it. It's a great book. It's a great story.
I don't know if I've ever read it, actually.
Oh, it's
I gotta
lovely.
do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then I had read the book, and then Lauren was like, "Oh, you have to watch the movie," and we watched the movie. It was really good.
I think my grandma read that book and loved it.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's a good book.
Okay. I'll read it this summer.
But yeah, the Appalachian. They're doing the Appalachian Trail in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, that is unbelievable.
Yeah. I will say I have no desire to go back to the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
Like it was beautiful. It was, but I also never planned to hike it. I just stumbled on it and was like, "Oh, I'll try this for a little while."
You said yes.
I said yes, and with no appreciation for what I just said yes to.
Yeah.
So I would not change the experience. Don't need to repeat it.
Who was it? Who was it? This is a Adam Grant thing where he says, the goal of climbing up the mountain is not getting up the mountain, it's getting back down.
Yeah. Yep. No, for sure. Like having it. So I did 3 days on the Appalachian Trail, and I carried
By myself,
and I had a backpack with all my stuff in it, like a trail running backpack.
Because we're planners.
Yeah, and I had it mapped out. Like I'm trying, and I didn't sleep on the trail. I stayed at like a lodge, a hostel, sort of thing. So but I was like, okay, this day I'm going to do this many miles, and I have to make it to this gap, and I'm going to be picked up and then driven back, and then it was, and then like, so Lauren's brother dropped me off at the start, and then her and her mom and her grandma were going to meet me 3 days later at this like town that I was going to try to get to, Dahlonega, Georgia. And
did you get there?
I got there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many miles?
So I did I think it was like 8:26, and then like 8 again or something like that. Yeah. Wow. So it was one day. One day was like a long day, and then
26
on the other ends.
miles in a day.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It was a little crazy.
I think the most.
But I got to meet a bunch of really cool people. That was the thing. Like at the where I was staying, you would just you're just staying with all these other people who are also hiking the trail.
Doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So we'd be like, well, let's go. Like they took us on a bus or like a van to Walmart. Like in the evening, and they're like, you can buy whatever you want, and then we'll take you back. So we like get beer and like snacks, and then we just like hung out and talked and learned about like where people were from. It was great.
I can only think, just because of the handful of people I did run into at the time, and this was during the pandemic, so it was limited, but there were still people out there.
Yeah.
But chit-chatting with them and whatnot, and I have to think, especially hearing what you did, I have to think like this has got to be a grouping of the most fascinating, like bohemian group that you can, because especially the thru hikers, right?
Yes.
Because thru hikers basically have to give up 2 to 3 months of their lives.
Yeah.
And like you of course you're gonna have young people, you're gonna have people in gap years, but you're also gonna have people who are like at weird transitions in their lives,
totally
finding themselves, and it's like
it's a very it's a
it's
pilgrimage.
Spiritual. It is.
It's spiritual. Yeah,
100%. That's a good way to put it. The other thing that it makes me think about too, kind of going into the theme of how to know a person, and like is also like, so we've spent a lot of time talking about like these really rich and deep relationships. I think there's something very powerful to be said also, and there's research that supports this. These
intermittent,
like local sort of interactions. Like there's nothing that I'll take my dog for a walk, and I'll run into people at the neighborhood, and our dogs will play, and we talk, and like they're not people that I would say are like close friends.
Sure,
but I love it. It makes me feel like I'm a part of a community.
A part of a community, of course. Yeah,
it's so. Got a little reputation around here because I'm the guy who waves to everyone in my neighborhood. I don't know anyone's name, but I'm like, hey, how's it going? And like, I'm sure at this point people are like, this guy's really friggin' weird. But I love those little interactions of just like, there's a human and a smiling face and a wave. Like there's a chemical release that happens with that, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
for sure. For sure. All right.
Frame for Kelley.
Frame for Kelley. Okay. Forbidden.
Ooh.
Okay. I'm going to answer this one. And this is kind of forbidden. For me, money means.
Oh. Yeah.
So my original plan in life was I graduated from college, and then I went to graduate school to be an actor. Got my MFA. And And then I quickly realized, I moved to Chicago, and I quickly realized this was not the life for me. This was not the life that my nervous system was going to support because I needed more grounding. Like I just needed more, I just could not live. Like I could not hustle and be broke and get excited about, like, this is like, I can't get excited about doing a hemorrhoid commercial so that I can pay my rent. This is not artistically fulfilling to me. So I had to make this big shift. And so I found this program where, because I wasn't an education major, I was a philosophy major in undergrad. And then I had an MFA in acting.
Right.
I was not marketable anywhere, right? I had 7 years of college and post and grad school, and I couldn't get a job anywhere. So I found this great program where I could go and get my master's in teaching and get my certification, and I would partner with a school that would use me as a full-time sub for a year.
Yeah.
And then they would pay for my master's because I was also like, I don't want to take out any more loans.
Yeah.
So it was great. And so I, went into this MAT program. And I remember the first day I was there, they have all these teachers in a room, and everybody's kind of talking about how, why are you here? Why is being a teacher your calling?
Yeah.
And everybody's, saying all these things, all these altruistic things. And I got up there and I was like, I don't know, but I'm here for the money.
And you are the first person in the world that has ever said that about teaching.
Yeah, because the other option is a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And frankly, now here I am at the threshold of retiring. And, one thing that's really great about teaching is I have a pension. And so now what money means to me is I have this kind of security that now I can afford to do something less monetarily, viable.
Yep.
So I can do spiritual direction, which, I make money at, but could not support me.
Right.
But I have this really great gift of having this, of having this kind of second half of life job that I don't really have to worry about how much money I make. So money has been for me a means of, it's been very practical and a means of opportunity for choices as opposed to like stuff.
Yep.
I say that as
that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's economic security, and it's the freedom to be able to make choices.
Yeah.
That's so right.
Yeah. And so
that's a good one.
Yeah. And I feel like talking about money is the forbidden thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're not allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to say I'm doing this because
right.
I'm making money.
I need money.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, like in my spiritual direction practice, when people say, like, how much do you charge? Like, it took me a while to get over, like, I'm doing a ministry, but I'm actually charging people money for it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was really, that was hard to kind of swallow for a while.
As a small business owner, I feel you on that. I think it's weird charging people for something I like doing.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's a hobby.
Right.
But now I got to put a
price on it.
And you do because, like, I went to grad school for it. I have spent a lot of money to train myself up in this way.
Yep.
Similar to you, you have invested a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so
time and effort
yeah,
and energy.
Yeah. And
all
that's
that.
Yeah.
So people need to be paid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
I love that story, Kelly, though. You have actually you shared that at some social gathering we were at once. And you and I didn't know each other all that well. Like, I didn't know you all that well. But neither you nor I were ever traditional teachers, right?
Yeah,
and like,
right.
you go, I did it for the money. And I'm like, I don't know her very well, but we're going to be great friends.
Yes. I'm here for the cash.
The money.
That's so funny. That's so funny. All right.
Well, this was fun, guys.
Yeah, this was great.
I don't know if anybody is enjoying listening to our silly stories. But hopefully these questions have spurred some stories of your own.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, maybe you'll go out and get this game and
play it with some friends.
Yeah, play it with some
back.
friends. Just go deep.
Yeah.
Go deep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for having me on.
Of course.
Yeah,
thanks for being our guest.
Yeah.
It's fun. You made me very nervous when you're like, we're going to play a game. And I'm like, I don't know what this is.
And you did great.
Yeah, you were awesome.
And you have a great voice.
I know. I was thinking that. I was like, oh, that's good. This is going to be good.
Well, thank you, I guess. Can't take a compliment. I don't like that.
You have a good voice.
Yeah. One thing we can do, if any of the listeners want to listen to this, I don't want to infringe on any copyright or anything, but we can definitely link some of the questions in the show notes.
Yeah, that's great.
You know.
I mean, we're also hawking the game, so
yeah,
totally.
Yeah. Absolutely. Go buy this game. It's awesome, and it's a lot of fun and develops really good relationships with people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to see you next time, and I think we're going to keep talking about books maybe for a little bit.
Yeah, excellent. Well, this was awesome, and we'll see you guys next time.
As always, thank you to our audience for investing your time and listening to us. Please subscribe, leave some feedback, and rate our podcast. Most importantly, share it with a friend. Our show will only grow because of you.
Atheist is produced by Justin Seiwell and Trend Media STL. You can follow us and other great podcasts on Instagram at STL Podcasts. Also, check out the show notes for links to our Substacks. Thank you for listening, and keep looking for connection.